Yeah, well, we are seeing a lot of changes. So there's so many changes. I'm trying to think of all the different ones to talk about, but obviously everyone has been tremendously affected, right? Whether it's, and we hear, so I hear everybody's personal stories because people literally call me and they tell me everything. Sometimes as mayor, it's like as mayor, you do everything, and sometimes you're people's therapist, sometimes you're an advocate, sometimes you're just there to listen, and obviously you're pushing policies forward and making change. But a mayor is also somebody that people just want to talk to sometimes, and so um, I think there's so much fear. Everything that happened that was happening before COVID, COVID just exacerbated everything. So we know that there's a lot of anxiety and fear in nuestra comunidad for, you know, possibly being separated, for people losing jobs, deportations, things like that. So esos sentimientos, esas emociones are just escalating and exacerbating with COVID. People, you know, I've talked to people, unfortunately, who are essential workers and they're not getting la protección que necesitan. And there's muchos abusos happening. People getting threatened. Oh, you don't have to work, we'll fire you then. But they're not going to get the protective equipment that they need. And so people having difficulty with childcare or family members with chronic conditions, not being able to pay rent and all this stuff. So, you know, it's a lot of what we saw before COVID, but it's like a million times worse and has escalated so much faster. And so we're doing a lot of things. Basically, what the city government is doing in Richfield is all the gaps that we're seeing that are coming from the federal funding or state funding, we're trying to cover so that nobody gets left behind. So, por ejemplo, the CARES funding federally y dinero del Estado is not accessible for undocumented Minnesotans. So, al nivel de la ciudad, we're making sure everything we do is accessible for undocumented Richfield residents. And we're advocating with our other cities to make sure, hey, there's gaps here. Or the small businesses really got left out of some financial support too. And so we're making sure that we're providing targeted information and resources and money for small businesses. So that's what we're trying to do. As federal assistance comes, as state level assistance, we are really hablando con la comunidad to see where the gaps are and fill those gaps with funding and support at the city. I think that we need to invest in that stuff more, and we've had to do that for so many years. So I work in public health, y eso significa que hay que cuidar no nada más el salud de una persona, pero de una comunidad entera. And sometimes we think, oh, health is, you know, are you sick or not sick? But actually, 80% of what makes health is do you live in a safe neighborhood, the income, your color of your skin, your education. Eso es la mayoría de las cosas que crea salud. And we're not investing in those things. We're not investing in our schools. We're not investing in mental health. And that's part of the reason that we're seeing the crisis right now that we're seeing with public safety, because the police basically is also on the front lines of everything, you know, and we're not addressing the issues of homelessness. We're not addressing the issues of mental health. And it gets to un momento in the last line of defense, in the last line of protection, in the last line of everything is the police. And that's not how we should be treating nuestra comunidad y gente. And we also need to look at the police because they are on the front lines. We need to make sure that, you know, they have the support, the social workers, the embedded mental health workers to integrate that into what they're doing. But we should be doing so much prevention to make sure that our communities are never getting in those spaces, and we're not investing in that. So I'm 100% in support of making sure that we put more resources towards things like social work, social services, but also good paying jobs and, you know, affordable homes. Esas son las cosas que son la fundación of all of this. If you don't, you know, if you can't make a good income and you can't afford your home, How are you going to feed your kids? How are you going to live in a safe neighborhood if we have a president who's racist and putting kids in cages and disrespecting and taking away our rights? You know, how are people going to feel safe when hate crimes are acceptable now? So there's a lot of stuff that we really need to face, and we do need to change what we're focusing on for sure. Yep. So a mayor is the figurehead, the formal figurehead of a city. We're the formal representative of our cities in regional matters, you know, internationally, nationally. But mayors across the cities, there's different forms of local government, but most of the local governments have governments like Richfield, where the city council makes the public policy, the budget decisions, they do the vision for the city, and then the city manager oversees all the staff in the day-to-day work of the city. Some cities, the mayor actually runs the city. They bring a whole administration in once they're voted in, and it's kind of operates a little more like it might federally, where the mayor is running the show and they have all these departments and they appoint people to be a part of their administration. But that's very, very big cities, and that's not the majority of the cities. So the majority of the cities are like Richfield, and the role of the mayor is really to lead the vision and the direction for the whole city. So we say what, you know, and we do that with our council, but we're the formal leader of the council. So we talk about what we want to have our priorities be for our budget, what kind of staff we want to invest in. Do we want to invest in our parks and programs and services? And people, you know, think so much about the federal government and so little about local government, but it's mayors and it's city councils that decide the majority of your day-to-day life. What is your home like? Is it safe? Is it quality? Do you have a grocery store close to your house? Are your roads all messed up, or are they beautiful with sidewalks and bike trails? Do you have parks? How do you feel with your police? All of that is local government. Everything that touches us on a day-to-day basis. We don't even have to leave our home. The quality of water that you're drinking, all of that is local government, and mayors and city councils do that. And so to me, it's one of the most important, if not the most important levels of government, because it has the most direct impact on people's day-to-day lives. I was kind of, it was a mix of things. One, I was very proud because now, you know, like for example, in Richfield, 40% of all of our students in the school district are Latinos. 40% of all the kids in our schools are Latino kids. That's so many. And 72% are estudiantes de color. So we have this diverse community, and I felt proud to say, you know, I'm the first so that we don't ever have to go through this barrier again. Now there's going to be a second, a third, a fourth, and whatever you want to be, you can be it, because I'm here to show you that you can be whatever you want. And so I was proud of that, but also I was really angry too, because the state of Minnesota has been a state for over 150 years. There's hundreds of cities in este estado, and elections for mayor happen every 2 or every 4 years. Y me van a decir que ninguna vez we've elected ever a Latina, you know, that, and it's 2018. That was really upsetting to me. It shouldn't take that long. And then of course, you know, I always have had people ask me, oh, do you only represent Latinos? And I'm like, do you ever ask an old white guy if they only represent old white guys? Come on.
And you're also Minnesotan, I mean.
Exactly. And I tell people that, but people don't want to listen to that because they want to put me in a box, right? And so you get a little bit of everything, but my response is like, I'm proud to serve everybody. I'm Minnesotan, I'm Latina, I'm also half white, and I'm proud of all of that. And, you know, we need multiracial leadership that can welcome and include everybody for the success of our city, the success of our country, and I'm proud to be a part of that movement. Well, I definitely did not come from the political world at all. So I ran for office 2 years before I became mayor for city council. And, um, you know, we had moved to Richfield a few years before to grow our family, to buy our first house, to really kind of lay down roots. And I realized Richfield is such a diverse, racially diverse, beautiful, amazing community that's so close to everything, the cities and everything, but it has this small town feel and it's so diverse. And so we were like, this is where we want to raise our kids. And Black Lives Matter was happening, and we were luchando por derechos y seguro médico for our undocumented families during that time too. And I just got to a point where I was like, I'm sick and tired of marching. I'm sick and tired of this war on people of color, on immigrants, whether it's subliminal and under the radar because of the horrible wages and working conditions people are in, or whether it's literally killing young Black men and women in the streets. There's a war on people of color, and we need to do something about it. And I need to change my life. And I said, well, how can I do that? And there was an open city council position. And I was like, well, I don't know much about it, but I know that I have something that I can offer that's more reflective of Richfield, that represents the youth, the multicultural families we have. I work in public health and I know a lot about building healthy communities. And I said, I think we need that perspective in our government. And so I guess I'm going to run for office. And I said, I don't know how to be a candidate. I don't know much about the political parties, but I vote and I know I'm a leader and I know that I have something to contribute. And people were like, oh my gosh, are you kidding? Like, you don't even come from the political world. You're too young. Nobody knows you. You're never going to make it. There's somebody who's already kind of the next in line from the party, that's ready to go, and was supported by all the politicians. And I said, I don't really care. If we lose, we grow community, we learn, we build civic engagement. And if I win, I don't even want to think about what's going to happen because I can't go there. And we ended up kicking butt, and we won by 58% of the vote when everybody told me that I would never make it. People told me to run as Maria Regan, so it was less Latino. People told me that there was just no way that I could make it, but they don't know what kind of organizers we are. We have Tias Chismosas that know a ton of people. We have Latino youth groups and church groups, and our neighbors that live in the apartments, and all kinds of people who want to be represented and want to support somebody just like them. And we kicked butt, and it was just I just wanted to do something, and I was sick and tired of feeling like there was less and less opportunities, and that our families were being killed and torn apart, and that I had to do something about it. So that's why I ran. Oh, in a nutshell, I don't know. I'm a nerdy chick that loves comunidad, mi familia. I love the outdoors, but I am all about comunidad, and that's how we were raised. And I'm a Midwestern Chicana. Mi papá es de Minnesota, Mora, Minnesota, y mi mamá es de la Ciudad de Mexico. So I very much identify as bicultural, biracial. I'm a Latina millennial. I'm a leader. And so I'm very much a mix. I tell people I'm Minnesotana porque I'm from La Ciudad Neza in Mexico is where my family's from. And then aquí in Minnesota. But I grew up playing ice hockey, going to the cabin, but also with a lot of the traditions and Mexican culture too. And I just wear that very proudly. And I don't fit in a lot of boxes. And I do that because I want to show our kids you can, be a Mexican girl like me and play ice hockey and be mayor and do all these things and love nature and also do all these other things. Just be yourself and rock it. And so I think I proudly am myself, and that can be very contradictory at times, and that's okay. It's okay. Oh, I don't know. I mean, I kind of like, what? Why are you guys making me answer this? I kind of like Bad Bunny. I like Bad Bunny. I don't know. It just depends on que me antoja. So I love al pastor, of course, and I love, tacos de carne asada, but sometimes me antoja un taco sencillo, un taco placero con chicharrón y pasote o papalo. I mean papalo and some salsa and just something very simple. And that's very much from Mexico City. But I think, carne asada y al pastor are my two favorites. Oh my gosh, I was so nerdy in high school, but I was pretty much like how I am now. So for the senior, they give those little senior awards. I was voted most likely to change the world, and so I was very much like how I am now. But I was just nerdy. I was like the president of the Human Relations Club, which is like our multicultural club. I was one of three people who started our Gay Straight Alliance. I did art. I didn't get really into drinking and smoking, and I was in sports and just kind of like, I was just like a nerd. And I had my little posse. And my school was mostly white kids. I grew up in Wisconsin, and so the city we grew up in, there was just still today, it's pretty heavily white still. Um, so yeah, I was very nerdy. I was like a book nerd and just did all the clubs and all the stuff like that. Yeah, yeah, it does. It is getting better. I think people still see me, right, as the Latina mayor. And I feel like in some ways I'm a little bit more okay with that too, because I want to keep alzando las voces en nuestra comunidad. And it's not about me, it's about me having an opportunity to share the beauty of our community, of our leader, the kids who are leaders, and really expand people's understanding of our community. But also, one of the things that I love to do, if somebody, I like to invite the haters to coffee, just to put it and say, let's have some coffee. I hear you have concerns, and I'm here to work with you, and I want to hear your ideas. And it's kind of like it's harder to hate it up close, It's like if you sit person to person and you actually have a discussion, people say, like, oh, wow, you are a good leader, or I didn't know you had all those skills in education and policy. I didn't know you worked for the city. Of course, you didn't know any of it. You just assumed. And so I like to just take it head on. Let's meet, let's talk, let me hear your issues. And, and challenge people to be a little more critical in their thinking and positive. And let them know I'm here to serve you. We're here to work together. And that helps a lot too. And I think people now know my reputation. I've had a lot of coffee with a lot of haters, and so things are different now. So we just set our priorities and budget for 2021, but our goal for a couple years, but we just solidified it even more for this next year and for the future of our city, is to really embed racial equity and equity into every single thing we do. And so when we talk about equity, we're talking about regardless of the color of your skin or your race or even economic background, ability, you should have access to everything you need and want to thrive, regardless of income, regardless of anything. We need to make sure that every Richfield resident has a quality, good home that's a good fit for them, that they can afford, has a good job, has access to the opportunities they want. And what we know is that actually, particularly in Minnesota, we have the worst inequities, the worst difference between outcomes for white people and people of color in the country here in Minnesota. And so, as a government, it's our responsibility, I believe, as mayor, that it is our responsibility to make sure we are doing everything possible to invest in those areas where we have this gap and this inequity so that all of our kids can thrive. When we have 72% of our kids are kids of color and they're experiencing worse outcomes in their families are, what kind of community are we going to have? We need to support our youth, support all of our families, and make sure they have what they need. So that's my top priority. And that's the top priority of the council. So that shows itself in our police reform work that we're doing. That shows up in the additional staff. We're hiring a staff completely focused on this. And that's going to be their job, making sure we look at every department and if our services are being distributed and accessible for all people. So that's our top priority. Well, a couple visions I have for Richfield is I want it to be a city where people come regionally from across different places of the Twin Cities, across Minnesota, to come to Richfield to see X, Y, and Z, right? A regional attraction. And right now, Richfield is very much a great place to raise a family, to have a home. But we don't, you don't think like, oh, that really great museum is in Richfield or this is in Richfield. Mm-hmm. So I think of except our amazing, taquerias and all that. That's people come to Richfield for that. But I'm thinking about, could we have a cultural district, a cultural corridor? So, por ejemplo, we have the second largest Tibetan refugee community in el estado, in Richfield, and a lot of people don't know that. So I've been working with La Comunidad Tibetan to see could we do a business district that's a Tibetan business district? It would be the first one in the whole nation. It would lift up la cultura que tenemos aquí in Richfield. And people could come and get their momos. They could, go, maybe there's a museum or an art gallery. So that's kind of like one idea. But I want to keep building in arts and culture into Richfield because I think that's something that we need more of. So we're looking at mural spaces and things like that. Another thing that I would love is to have a Latino community center, a big Latino community center in Richfield, because we don't have any in the suburbs. And we have un montón de familias Latinas living in the suburbs, and particularly in Richfield, Bloomington, Savage, all over. And I want to have a hub that's this beautiful cultural, artistic community center and hub for nuestra comunidad. So those are kind of some things, but it's mostly focused on infusing arts and culture in the community as a way to lift up all the beautiful diversity that we have and bring people together. Yeah. I would say we're a resilient community. We always have been. And, people have gone through so much, whether it was leaving their country, leaving their family behind, doing, taking risks. We have always done that, and it's a part of who we are como comunidad, and we always make it through, and we make it through stronger. And so this is another example and another time to just keep motivated, keep positive. And I ask people, what are those couple things that make you laugh, that give you joy? And they'll say, my daughter, mi familia, walking around outside, coloring. So just take a moment and pause and say, these are the things that make me happy. Watching comedy shows on Netflix, whatever it is, and make sure that you're doing those things. And those are the things that are going to give you energía, that are going to help you avanzar and sobrevivir. And I also tell people, because, there's so much stress layered upon so many things, that people say, I don't have time, I can't do that. And it's like, if you don't take care of yourself, it's going to affect your niños and how you show up for your niños. It's going to affect your pareja. It's going to affect your work. You're going to make yourself sick and more, immunocompromised if you're so stressed out, if you're not eating, si no estás durmiendo. So you need to really basically go back to the basics, get good sleep, make sure you're eating healthy, good food, you're getting some movimiento, you're connecting with the people you love, and take care of your mental health and well-being. Because if you don't do that, you're hurting yourself, you're hurting your family, and you're hurting your community. And by taking care of ourselves in such a horrible, stressful time, it helps everybody, and we will get through it together. This is temporary. There will be an end in sight. We don't know when, but this is not going to be forever. And we're resilient. We're very strong people and we can make it through. Well, one, right now we have our elections coming, and you don't have to wait to vote. You can vote now. Voting is happening now, and I just encourage everybody to educate yourself on the issues, educate yourself on the candidates, try to find sources that are factual, because obviously and unfortunately we have news sources that are really, it's propaganda. It's really not news, incredible information. But we have been taking our democracy too much for granted, and this is what happens. And so our rights are being taken away, our families are being separated, and we have fought for generations for civil rights, and those civil rights are getting taken away right now. And so, I don't care if you're too woke to vote or you don't care or whatever. Like, you need to vote. You have to vote for the future of your own future, but the future of your kids and your family. They're stripping away our rights constantly, and we need to stop that, and we need to regain our rights. And so I just want to encourage people, to vote. And people from mixed status families, if the kids can vote, vote for your mom, vote for your dad, vote for your tios y abuelitos, because even though if someone's undocumented, I still represent them. Our elected officials still represent this whole nation and all of us, regardless of anything, regardless of immigration status. We are here to represent and serve our people. So I just ask people to vote, and there's tons of bilingual information of how to vote, how to register, all of that. So there's just zero excuses. And then lastly, what I would say to anyone who wants to run for office, or anyone who wants to do anything, don't be afraid to be yourselves. Our tíos, mamás, abuelitas, ellos no sufrieron lo que sufrieron y vivieron lo que vivieron, so we could sit here and take it for granted. We need to be strong. We need to be powerful. We need to own who we are, because our family didn't suffer so that their kids could be, little privileged kids that take everything for granted. They struggled so that we could have a better education, so that we could make more money, so that we could lead. And so it's our responsibility for our family and the generations that came before us to be who we are and to be strong leaders. That's what we owe to our family, who sacrificed everything for us. Who is more in alignment with what you believe in? Who's going to help advance? Who's closer to helping advance what we want? And you always have to do both. We can't wait for the perfect world, the perfect candidate to happen, because we'll die waiting. But also, we can't accept the status quo, which is why we also need people to run for office. If they believe, and actually, that's how I got into office. I wasn't trying to run for office, but I looked at the candidates for city council, and I was like, this is not representative of our community. And I was looking and I was calling, hey, do you know someone that could run? Do you know somebody? We need a woman of color. We need someone that bring more diversity and a different perspective. And there was nobody. And then I'm like, well, I guess I have to vote or run for office. Yeah. So, that's how we get into this mess sometimes, but we got to do both. We got to keep avanzando with what we have in front of us, but we also have to always fight for change, because if you only do one, we'll never actually achieve what we really dream of achieving.